It's 2 o'clock. This is the Rules Committee meeting, and I am sitting in for David Cohen, who is unavailable today. Clerk, will you take the roll, please?
Davis?
Here.
Jimenez?
Here.
Kennedy absent. Foley?
Here.
Cohen absent.
Great, thank you. Let's proceed to the agenda. We do not have a meeting next week. It's President's Day on Monday, so typically we don't have a council meeting the next day. So moving on to item number 2, which is a review of the February 27th agenda. We do have a start time at 1:30, and we have an evening session, but we don't have any items other than consent. So if whoever makes the motion could make a motion to release the evening session, that would be great. Then we have our ceremonials. We have consent on pages 4, 5, and 6. And then we have 3.3, annual report on Measure T, amendment to Title 12, 3.4, 4.1 is 9/11 event data analysis. 7.1, education and digital literacy annual report. 7.2, raging waters. And then 2 land use consent items, which will be heard immediately following the regular consent. Are there any public comments on agenda for council meeting February 27th?
No public comments at this time.
Okay, any comments from my colleagues?
Move approval with moving the land item consent to directly after consent and canceling this 6 p.m.
Second.
Great. Seeing no discussion, let's vote. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. We have an agenda for the 27th. Okay, moving on to the consent calendar, we have 3 items. Is there any public comment on the 3 consent items?
These are all for the last item, but security just let them in, so they were unable to be in the doors were locked.
Do you want to just take them at open forum?
Okay, why don't we're happy to hear you at open forum. We've already voted on the item, but we're happy to listen to your comments afterwards. This just puts the items on the agenda. So we're happy to listen to what you have to say when we get to open forum, which will be shortly after we approve the consent. I'm sorry?
If we need to revisit it, we can at open forum.
Yeah, so what they can give us the open form, they can always reopen that item if they choose to. So if they want to add the item, they can go back and reopen the item, which we have done before.
Okay. Thank you. Then let's proceed to the consent and move on to open forum. Conclude. Do we have any comments on the consent?
No public comments at this time.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, let's vote on the consent. Thank you, that motion carries. Now we move to open forum.
As I call your names, please go ahead and make your way to the podium. Kira, Lucila, and Christine. And I have one card here without a name.
Okay, well, that was fast. And this is a good example of why it would be really great to be able to have public comment from my house, because I wouldn't have been late for that item. And that's why we're here. I'm Kira Kazantzis from Silicon Valley Council of Nonprofits. We're asking that an item for public hearing be held on the accessibility of public comment. We are wanting council to take a public vote on whether hybrid access should be continued for city council meetings and committee meetings. Couple things, you probably saw a letter that I forwarded from the Rio Coalition. I won't repeat all the things that are said in that letter, but I wanted to add a couple things. As I drove here to get to this meeting, because I wasn't able to call in, I can see there's an impending storm, kind of another reason why we don't need to be putting people on the road to get to city council meetings in unsafe driving conditions. The other thing I wanted to point out is that we are unaware of any community members asking for a discontinuation of the hybrid access. As a coalition, a racial equity coalition, we work with accountability grassroots partners to kind of check and make sure that as a grass tops organization, we are listening to community, and one of the entities that we consulted with on this item was Black Leadership Kitchen Cabinet, and they got back to us after an extended meeting where they had a very robust discussion about this issue, and although the words that the Zoom bombers are using causes great harm to certain communities, on balance, they felt and conveyed to us in support of our letter that it was better to have hybrid and access than not to have it on balance, even though there are pros and cons on both sides in terms of like the harms created by both of these potential actions that council can take. So we're asking a reversal of that decision. Most of all, we really want this to be aired in public so that council can really hear.
Hello, my name is Lucila Ortiz, and I'm reading a letter on behalf of Christine Fitzgerald with the Silicon Valley Independent Living Center. So I am asking my colleagues to speak for me as I am not able to make it to the meeting in person. You might well wonder why it is. Quite simply, my access needs are not being met. My caregiver quit for a better paying placement, and I have yet to find someone to work for the hours and times that I need help with in getting ready for my day. The process of preparation to join any meeting in person is multi-layered. It is not simply having help in getting cleaned up, dressed, and out of the door. This would have been possible back in the day when I could dress, bathe, and drive for myself. Now these things have to be done with the help of others. I have to have attendance help. I have to schedule access rights to and from a venue, making sure I time things to match my attendance time with me. Compare the above to this. I take care of my needs as best as I can as I look for my new aid. I set myself up for a day in front of my iPad, ready to advocate for the people with disabilities in my role as community advocate for the Silicon Valley Independent Living Center through any number of community meetings, committees, and boards through Zoom or other video teleconferencing. Without the ability to join remotely, the voice of people with disabilities are effectively silenced if we have no way of coming in person due to circumstances beyond our control. Remote participation should return without any hesitation. You not let some bad actors take away our ability to be fully members of the community, because every voice counts.
Thank you for sharing the thoughts from Christine.
I'm Joel. I'm a De Anza student, just kind of learning how local government works. And when I heard that you could attend city council meetings on Zoom and kind of comment on that, I was super excited about that whole prospect. It made it really easily accessible. And then kind of, getting through the agendas and understanding how all that worked was a little bit of a barrier to entry. But now kind of this further barrier to entry, the fact that you can't actually provide public comment via Zoom is just kind of disappointing, and I wish that weren't the case. Thank you, guys.
Hello again. Now I'm speaking on behalf of myself, Lucila Ortiz with Silicon Valley Rising, and I also want to ask you to please resign the decision that you made during closed session to stop access to public comment on Zoom. As you've heard, there's a lot of people that are impacted by this, and the voices that you need to hear and center for the policies that we pass in the city of San Jose are the ones that are going to be most impacted by this decision. That includes single mothers, that includes people of color, people with disabilities, and people who have no access to transportation. And so while we are also concerned about the hate comments and the spur of the hate that's been happening on Zoom, we also feel that the soundness of the policies that you pass are in danger because you're not hearing from the community. And that would also reverse and send us back to years of work and getting the community getting used to this access. And so taking that back will reverse all that work, and it will take triple the amount of work. Having done community organizing for over 20 years, I can tell you that it takes a habit forming, you know, for the community to learn. And now they have to unlearn on any, like no notice whatsoever, all the things that we learned with technology. And it will be so much more work for your staff. To be able to outreach and reach out to people once we are able to get the comments back. And so I ask you to please resign that decision to have an open conversation about this item so that we can think about other solutions that are more creative than just prohibiting access to Zoom comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any comments or discussion? If not, then Councilmember Jimenez.
Yeah, so thank you for coming in and speaking. I think there's a misconception in the community that this, well, one, it was in fact done in closed session, so behind closed doors, that decision was made. I think what you're lifting up to agendize this, I'm totally open to that. I think it's a worthwhile conversation that I think the public should probably be part of and listen to, because there's a lot of diverse opinions from all the colleagues up here. I think it's safe to say that the fact that we haven't returned back to the way things were with hybrid, given a lot of the racists that have been joining the meetings, we took a vote, and what you see is sort of the result of that vote. But I think it's a worthwhile conversation to have. And I would also add that trying to walk a fine line here. Yeah, I think a lot of options were vetted, and so I think some of that's in the process of being thought about. So, but I think I'd be open to having that discussion amongst the full council and public view, so you all can hear, assuming we can legally do that. But I'm totally open to that. So, anyway, I'll stop talking and.
I think the only way to do it would be Tony's suggestion to reopen your consideration of the agenda, but then the only thing you could really talk about would be putting it on the agenda for the 27th. So otherwise, this is not agendized for discussion at this meeting.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Davis.
Thank you. So I just, for all of you here and anybody watching, we did discuss it in closed session. There are legal issues that we're trying to work through. I think that's why it's hard to separate out what we can and can't talk about. I will tell you that this is an open issue with City Council, and we have the city attorney looking into what our options can be to make public discussion as open, as accessible, and frankly, as polite as possible, for lack of a better term, so that we can have decorum in our meetings and that no one feels threatened or that their personal safety is at risk. And so those are the things that we have to all untangle, along with people's constitutional rights to free speech, even if it's odious. So that's what we're working through, and that's not everyone on council wants to have accessible meetings, and we don't think that only being able to come to the chambers is the most accessible thing. We're figuring out our options for accessibility, and I think that's probably all I can say, but please know that this is an open discussion with council. We just have to work through the legal issues, which is why I don't want to put anything on the agenda right now to have a public discussion, because there's a lot that we don't know what we can say.
Seeing no other hands raised or debate on this issue, I close this meeting and close rules for the afternoon. Call the time, whatever we would normally do. Thank you.